why should I come here for Zal next year? My question is, why should I accept you for Zal next year? It's a very big question, Bechlal, so I want to talk a little bit about yeshivas Bechlal. A lot of Bachrim now are confused where they're going for next year because of Corona and other reasons. Bechlal, the Bachrim that are thinking about next year, wherever they're going, nothing to do with Postville or not Postville. Today, most Bachrim, when they want to go somewhere, 90% of the time, the cheshbon is, where are my friends going? Wherever my friends are going to go, that's where I want to go. And that's the cheshbonis that they make. Bachrim don't really think about so much the yeshiva. They don't. I spoke to a bacher about a certain yeshiva that he's going to. I mentioned like the main mashpia over there. The bacher was really, that's the guy in charge. He's going to that yeshiva and he has no idea who the main guy is there. Like everybody that goes through the yeshiva knows that yeshiva is famous for Pliny, and he didn't know that Pliny is there, b'chlal. And it's a bit sad. It's a bit sad. In the past, when a person was looking for a yeshiva to go to, he was looking for a different Rosh Yeshiva. You want this Rosh Yeshiva gives a share like this, he gives a share like that. Today, for the most part, guys are going for the chavedim, for the aviv, for the atmosphere. That's what they're looking for. That's not. That's the way it is when it sees. What should a bacher be looking for? So it's not so much about the mashpia or the Rosh Yeshiva. What a bacher should be looking for in yeshiva is a place where he can grow. That's what a bacher is looking for. And the question is, why are we going to yeshiva? A bacher goes to yeshiva because a bacher is meant to grow in his Avedis Hashem. A bacher has to grow in Torah and Aveda to become a Chassidish bacher, to come closer to the Eibishter. That's the purpose why a bacher goes to yeshiva. And you can grow in the yeshiva when you have there's a lot of ingredients kiviyachol that can help a bacher grow in the yeshiva. Versteisich, there's chavedim, and then there's anhola, and then there's other aspects of the yeshiva. There's a story that I like to say always, that there was a bacher that he was 19 years old and his younger brother was turning bar mitzvah, and the family was going into yechidus in honor of their bar mitzvah, and the older brother learned in a certain yeshiva, and he had big tightness against the anhola where he was. So he told his father before he went into the yechidus that he wants to give the Rebbe a note on his own, and I guess not through the maskidus, but derechal they were given the notes before. Even to give the Rebbe the note that he wants to talk to the Rebbe. So the father said, "Fine, it's the family yechidus. It seems like there was a libe over there." So they went in for the yechidus. The Rebbe spoke to the family, to the bar mitzvah bacher, and then the father turns to the older 19-year-old. No, so he's told his father, "I want everyone to go out. I want to be alone." So everybody left the room, and this bacher gave the Rebbe his title. Now I was never in yechidus. But whoever was in Yechidus says that I would take a title and always read it in Tzvei Mamish, flip through it and then answer right away. But here, the Rebbe went very, very slowly through the title. The Rebbe read it very slowly what he wrote about his Anhola, specifically about a certain Mashpia, where he was basically cursing out this Mashpia. He's not interested in the Bachrim, he just has to get them, and he doesn't really care. B'chulu, Gederech HaTainis that Bachrim have on Anhola. And when he finished, the Rebbe finished reading the letter, the Rebbe answered him two things. One thing the Rebbe told him was that a bacher's job is not to give anhola musar. Your job is to look up all the soil, to sit and learn. And I got this year, I heard the story from somebody else, and I went over to the Yid himself that asked the story, and I asked him to repeat it to me, so I should hear it from Kli Rishon, and he said it the same way, but he was mamish focusing on the first, and the Rebbe, your bacher has to be just on that part of the Rebbe's answer was what stuck with him the most. But what spoke to me the most is the second half of the Rebbe's answer. The Rebbe told him that since the Rebbe Rashab established Temchet Mimim, the Rebbe Rashab made sure that there should be at least 2 mashpiyim in every yeshiva. And the reason is because ain't the same Shabbos. There's no 2 people that are alike. And therefore, to have one mashpiyah and expect him to connect with every single bacher is impossible. So there should at least be 2 mashpiyim. You can have 100 mashpiyim and still not connect with any of them, but at least there should be a second option. Very powerful story with many, many heroes. But what I wanted to say is that you go to yeshiva, there's no such thing as one yeshiva which is a success for everybody. Every single yeshiva that's there, including Postville, there are bachim that come and are very matzliach, and there are bachim that are very not matzliach. To come and say this yeshiva is a terrible yeshiva and everyone is messed up over there, or that this yeshiva everyone's matzliach and loves it and has a great time, but it's not being honest. There are yeshivas that there's more atzlach and less atzlach, but there's always yeshivas that will have bachim that are very matzliach, and unfortunately the opposite as well. So how do I know? How do I know what yeshiva is good for me? So the real way of doing it is to go to your mashpia. Really, not even your mashpia. Really, the real way is going to your anhola. That's the ideal way. Ideally, all the anholas of all the yeshivas are meant to work together. And if a bacher wants to go from yeshiva aleph to yeshiva beis, so yeshiva anhola of yeshiva aleph and anhola of yeshiva beis talk to each other, and they say, okay, plane is coming to you, and the bacher goes. That's the ideal way. Practically today, doesn't happen for many reasons. So today, second best is you go to your own anhola, you go to your own mashpia. Like most bachrim, their mashpia is part of their anhola. So you go to your mashpia, who's part of that anhola, and you ask him what he does. And the mashpia siyata d'shmaya, the mashpia on his own is a mukbul, he's a basar v'dam, and therefore he can make mistakes. But since he has the koyach of the Rebbe, so we need to suggest you to go to Mokim Ploini. Then b'derech klal, you can rely that this is what the Rebbe is telling you to do, and the pashtus, that would be the best place where you can be matzliach. And that's where we should go. So, Baruch is asking about any yeshiva to go to, that is the right answer. You're supposed to ask your Maseilah Charav, you're supposed to ask your Anhola, ask them what to do. And I just spoke to Baruch yesterday, he told me that his Mashpia told him to go to a certain yeshiva, and not to go to a certain yeshiva. And he told me that the same Mashpia told other Baruch to go to that yeshiva. And he explained very simple that his Mashpia felt that for Baruch Plainly this yeshiva is good. Baruch Plainly it's not good. That's the way it's supposed to be. So the Mashpia is using his understanding of the Baruch, understanding of the yeshivas that he knows, and according to that, he makes his decisions. Unfortunately, there are Baruchim that don't have Aseh L'Charav, don't have Anhola, so therefore they want to make their own decisions. It's very sad. It's not b'diavad. It's wrong. It's wrong to go that way. But because Baruchim are asking anyway, so I just want to say about the yeshiva that we opened over here is really, it's many mesiftas are trying to do the same thing. I have friends in other mesiftas that a lot of the mesiftas want to open up zals. Why is that? Because many mashpim from Shir Gimel mesifta keep up with their bachim that they go the next year for zal, and many times they feel that their bachim that they sent to zal are not having a good time. They're not as matzliach as they were when they were mesifta. So the anhol of Shir Gimel always feels bad, like this guy was doing so well by us, now he went to this other yeshiva at a terrible time. So let's make a zal, and we'll be able to provide for make sure he has a good time. And that's why numerous mesiftas open a zal. That's one of the reasons we opened the zal here. So like every year before we had the zal, every single year I had a group of 5 bachim that asked me to make a zal. And I always felt, I'm not holding this, I'm not going to do it. When I finally said I'm doing it, everyone went back down. That's the Kederech HaBach. So what was my goal? My goal with making the zal is that I would say there's 2 major issues that bachim have in zals. He says a lot of bachim are matzliach. Like I said, many zals are very matzliach. Many zals are matzliach, especially if you have the koyach of the Rebbe, which means that you're mashpia, you're anoda. Told you to go somewhere, then you know you're doing the right thing, and don't think twice, and do your best to be matzliach. But the reason why some bachim are not matzliach is because of it's basically one akuda, but the echad shtayim. The number one is there isn't enough hadracha. Azal and Hol expects the Bachrim to already know a lot more than they actually know. So when the Bachrim falls in Zal, a lot of times he feels like he's just dropped into the ocean, he's asked to swim. In Zal, it's a lot less shiurim, it's most of the chavrusas, and especially the biggest killer for most Bachrim is Iyun. Seder Iyun, especially many yeshivas have Iyun base, which is 5 hours of Iyun. They have an hour and a half, maybe sometimes an hour shir, and 3-4 hours of just sitting and learning Iyun. I asked the Bachrim once in a certain yeshiva, how's the Seder yeshiva over there? How does the Bachrim learn? He told me, Seder Girsa, our guys are learning those diamonds. What about Seder Iyun? He says, it's hard to tell, because Seder Iyun, since it's 4 hours, everyone learns for 1 hour. So there isn't a Kol Torah, because everyone's wasting time somewhere, but all in all, everyone ends up learning an hour. So that's a famous thing that many yeshivas, they say that Iyun is unfortunately doesn't work. My goal in my zal is to cancel Seder Iyun. Is to make only learning Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos, and maybe Rishonim, but the knack, to learn a lot of Torah. That's the ideal way it should be. Rabbi Yisrael Lapkovsky, into the Lapkovskys again. So Rabbi Yisrael Lapkovsky told me he was in Broa. They learned in one zman, I think it was from Tishrei to Pesach, I think 50 blot Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos. Knack, that's what they don't do it in Broa. But they learn a lot of Gemara. That's the way it should be. The idea is Pasha to learn a lot of Torah, to know Chazer, Nacham, more Masechtas, to learn a big amount. And the Zals with the Iyun are geared for Bachrim that know how to learn on their own already, but they're not really ready. Most Bachrim are not really ready. So some Zals do give Hadracha. Versteht sich, there's always the Magid Yishurim. Some Magid Yishurim are more on top of their Talmidim, some are less on top. Those that are on top, they come every day with Maramakim, with copies, and they're telling you what to do, and if they have that, then Adarabah, that's great. But some Zals don't have that. Some Magid Yishurim don't do that. They expect the Bachrim to be up to par already. So that's one problem. The second problem is that the bigger yeshivas, it's Yadua that there isn't enough Anhola towards the staff. The ratio in some yeshivas could be 30, 40 Bachrim for one Anhola member. and then if you want to speak to the mashpia, you have to wait a month or two until you get to speak to somebody, and it could be very frustrating for a bacher. So I know a bacher once spoke to me that he was speaking to me about his experience in Mesivta, and basically he was very unhappy about the fact that his mashpia never spoke to him. The mashpia of the yeshiva never spoke to him. So I asked him, where are you planning on going next year? So he told me the name of a yeshiva. So I didn't tell him anything. To myself, if that's what you bothered you in the Mesivta you're going to, I know the zal that you're going to, and that zal is infamous, that in that zal, it's almost impossible to have a mashpia come over to you. This bacher was shy, he wasn't going to go over to the mashpia on his own. So I'm not going to say anything because he wasn't asking my opinion, I was just having a conversation with him. But so over here we try to this. So another thing we have over here is we try to have that the bacher that then how does it say there? They go over to the bacher. There's there's no guaranteed recipe for success. And bichlal, a lot of times people have ideas how to run a yeshiva, how to create a yeshiva, and they open up the yeshiva with all their grand visions, what they have, and then the bachim that they have a whole that come to the yeshiva have a completely different grand vision of how yeshiva is supposed to look, and it doesn't work out. Many yeshivas opened up with visions, and they were visionaries, that ideas, but the talmidim that they got, they weren't able to work with. It wasn't what they were expecting, so they didn't work out. Which by us, not mamish, not bad, but it wasn't the same way we liked it. Not in the kudah, but one of the first things that I said is that I have a friend of mine that teaches in a certain zal. So he told me that one day there was a bacher in zal that was he walked by his desk. This bacher was writing sikumim of teisus. What we do now over here for money, he was doing it on his own, but he wasn't keeping up with the rishonim that the Maggid Shir was teaching. So my friend told me that he told this bacher, "You want to just do this the whole day instead of coming to shir?" So he said the bacher's face lit up. He said, "Yeah, for sure." But my friend said, I'm not the manal, I can't do that, and therefore I told him, okay, fine, I said, no, but he didn't ask him, offer it mamish. But basically my friend said he felt so terrible, he's a teacher and he has no choice, he has to make everyone come to shir and teach the Shainim and Achreinim with the style that he yeshivas. But really, such a bacher, if he'd be able to learn, do Marsha Teisvis and go through Teisvis in the way he liked it, he'd be so much more happier, so much more successful, he'd be able to develop so much more. We had over here a bacher in the yeshiva, it was 4 or 5 years ago. A bacher wasn't up to learning Gemara. The bacher went through the whole Yalkut Bam Leis. We have the set over there in English. He spent every day 3-4 hours sitting in his place, mamish 3-4 hours a day, learning Yalkut. He didn't read English so quickly, he couldn't read Hebrew B'chlal, and he sat and he read for 3-4 hours every single day, going through Yalkut Bam Leis. Today, Baruch Hashem, he's a Chassidus bacher, he learns Gemara, he learns Chassidus, but that was, since he was able to do what he liked and he enjoyed, so he was able from this to grow. So those are the two Nekudas we try to offer. But again, it's only for Bacher. I'm saying this what I said before. No Bacher should come here because he made the decision on his own. You should ask your Rashpia, ask your Asei L'Charav, and if you don't have a Asei L'Charav, so before you figure out what yeshiva to go to, you should work on having a Asei L'Charav. That's a lot more important than that decision. What is the deal with reading Rambam? Like, if you're learning in English, because you don't understand Hebrew, should you also read English? Not sure exactly what the question over here is, but Pashtus Limud Rambam, if you hear a shir in Rambam, and the Maggid Shir is saying the Hebrew words quietly to himself, and actually explaining everything Baal Peh, the Fi'ani is daiti, you're Yoitze Limud Rambam, that's the Iker Limud Rambam is Teresh Baal Peh, and you understand that basically what the Rambam is saying. Versteht sich, the Rambam is medaik in every word, and the Mefarshim explain numerous in Yonim, and it is a tremendous mind in learning the Rambam's actual Lashon, but L'daiti, L'fi'ani is daiti, is that the mitzvah of learning Rambam, there's no mitzvah to say the words if not understand, actually no mitzvah. There's a definitely you're mekayim the mitzvah of the Rebbe, mitzvah of the Rebbe, the takon of the Rebbe. To learn Rambam every day, to hear a shir, understand whatever is being said, even though you didn't grasp every Hebrew word and didn't understand every Hebrew word. The second question on this topic is there a point in reading 3 prakim or learning 1 paragraph of Rambam? This is a very famous question, which this also is a question for a person or for a mashpia. In general, there are 2 kavim in the Lubavitch. There's the kav of the Talmidei Chachamim and there's the kav of the Chassidim. If you ask the Chaver in the Lubavitch, know how to learn very well. When it comes to Rambam, how much should you learn? So they're all going to tell you to learn 1 perek Rambam. You ask the guys that are Chassidim and Mekusharim, they're all going to tell you to learn 3 parakim Rambam. You would be surprised to know how many great Lubavitch Rabbonim, great Lubavitch Rosh Yeshivas that learn only 1 perek Rambam. My mashpia learns 1 perek Rambam, and he told me to tell the Bachrim that 3 prakim Rambam is for Yechidei Sgula. You have to be an Ilui in order to learn 3 prakim Rambam. You heard Menachem Gerlitzky was here the other day, and Shlomo Bakunin. These are Chassidish Chevra, and the Talmidei Chacham Shaft is Behelm der Weile. So by them, they kraft sich know 3 chapters, Troshel Brokim. That's what the Rebbe spoke about all the time. That's the derech. My father used to learn 1 perek Rambam. It's the first thing, the first cycle, the second cycle, and then he told me that he felt guilty because every Fabrengen the Rebbe always spoke about 3 Perakim. I think once or twice, that's Rebbe Vogel. I think maybe only once or 2 times the Rebbe spoke about the Shir of Perek Echad. Every time the Rebbe Fabrengen was always the 3 Perakim. My father felt so guilty, so he moved up to 3 Perakim. But again, there's mitzad the way the Rebbe spoke about is 3 Perakim, 3 Perakim. But those people that understand how learning means, they say that you have to learn 1 perek. And again, my mashpia told me that I'm not allowed to allow Bachim to learn 3 prakim. They have to learn 1 perek. I asked my mashpia in the past if I can argue with him. His mother's mind. He said do whatever you want. I'm telling you my opinion. So in this also, I don't really enforce his hero to me. But I want you guys to understand it's such a shit. When it comes to reading 3 prakim or learning 1 perek over here, a lot more people, even amongst the Chassidish Chevra, will already say that Ad Kedei Kach no. It's better to read 1 perek, learn 1 perek than read 3 prakim because that's mamish. You can learn 3 prakim. Okay, there are these Chevra that are not Talmidei Chachamim, they can actually learn 3 prakim in half hour, 45 minutes. So therefore, so that they say that you should learn 3 prakim. But if you're reading it mamish, then most people will say no. You have better to learn 1 perek. There will still be people that tell you no matter what, 3 prakim is the way to go, and reading it is also an inyan. The Rebbe once told the Chassid about Chitas that there's a skashus of machshava dibur ma'aser. So when you're just saying the words of Chitas, that's also an element of iskashus. So by saying the words of Rambam without understanding, this is for a Fabrengen, not for a Hiro, as a Mashpia talking to a Talmud. For a Fabrengen, if saying it, even just saying it as well. So these Chayra will be hergish. I'm going to say 3 prakim no matter what. I'm never going down to 1 perek. That's a smaller miut. But the Rav will tell you, the way I understand, that it's definitely better to learn 1 perek than read 3 prakim, especially that when it gets to the point that you're only reading 3 prakim, there's a lot less geschmack, and you can easily get backed up, and within 3 days you already have to do 9 prakim, 12 prakim, v'chulu v'chulu. One more? One more. Which one? All of them. One more. So a lot of details in this question. It's all on the same noisa. If someone cannot accept the idea of Nasav and Nishma because he needs to have an answer if it's a big question, then is it impossible to have real Kabbalah soil? Is Kabbalah soil only automatic, and if you're smart, it's impossible? If I don't have real Kabbalah soil, am I not really a chassid? That then is also, but the also is not so much, it's connected, but it's a different noise. Okay, so I'll try to explain what Kabbalah soil means, and then hopefully we'll go through the questions and again and answer with answers. Kabbalah soil, oil is a piece of wood or metal which is shaped like a ches, and it's put around the neck of the cow, and it's put upon the cow's neck when it's young, preferably. We're coming up to Eicha. When you're young, when the calf is young, they put this ches-shaped piece of metal, which is very, very heavy, and it's locked into place with other things. And now the cow cannot move either in any direction. Only when the yoke is moved this way, it can move to the right, or to the left, or to be lifted up. It cannot do anything on its own. There's the yoke which is holding it in place. Ironically, the cow, which is the oil, the source of the oil, will never be makabel oil. A cow is never going to be willingly take upon himself the oil. It has to be broken in. So the real oil is never Kabbalah. It's always enforced. Kabbalah soil, in a sense, is an oxymoron. It's 2 opposites. But what does Kabbalah mean? You're taking upon yourself what you're going to do. Oil means that you're forced, and even though you want to go this way, you can't, but you're stuck in one direction. So how can you be Makabel and oil? If I'm making achlah, if I decide I want to learn every day for an hour, so it's no oil, it's not being forced to. I enjoy the Gemara, I made achlah, I want to do so. It's not Kabbalah's oil, it's a Kabbalah, it's a achlah that I want to do. And if somebody comes and twists my arm and forces me to sit down and say there, and I don't want to sit there, that's an oil, it's not Kabbalah's oil, you're forcing me. So how can you have Kabbalah's oil? How can you be Makabel upon yourself from oil? And the answer is that Kabbalah's oil is a decision where somebody says, let's say the cow would be told, you can run around now, but if you're going to walk into that room, there's going to be a farmer that's going to come and lock this oil on your head, and from then on you're going to be stuck. You should know it's better for you, because once you get there, he'll serve you, he'll feed you, he'll take care of you, he'll make sure you're taken care of, but you should know that if you go in there, you're stuck. Kabbalah soil means that. Kabbalah soil means that you make a decision, you put yourself in justice, you make a decision that from now on, whatever the Eibishter says, that's what I'm going to do, that's going to become my way of life, whether I understand it or I don't understand it. Kabbalah soil is the decision, that this is what Chassidus talks about, is called Kabbalah soil clothing, but really, this is the shade of Kabbalah soil. It's a decision where you make and you say that from now on, whatever the Eibishter wants, whatever says in Torah, that becomes the direction for my life. So you're walking into the room, and then suddenly you find out, one second, you want to be frum, you should know you have to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, I already put myself under this yoke. Now, it's not a physical yoke, and any person has Bchira Chavshis. But once you make that decision that I'm going to listen, now you don't care about what you feel or what you understand. Once you made that decision of Kabbalah Soil, you continue along that way. And when a Bacher makes a general decision, says, a dogma, a Bacher goes to yeshiva, we said before, yes, let's say a Bacher decides, I'm going to a certain yeshiva that over there you must wear, let's say this kind of yarmulke, what I'm wearing now, this black yarmulke. Some yeshivas are makbid, some are not makbid. A Bacher that doesn't like wearing this kind of yarmulke, but he decides, I'm going to that yeshiva. When you're going to that yeshiva, you're accepting upon yourself that from now on, that's the yarmulke you're going to go wear. You don't like it, you don't understand, you don't care for it, but you know that's the rule over there. So that's called, the decision to go to that yeshiva is the Kabbalah. So when you get to the yeshiva, you find that there's more rules. They have other rules that you're not comfortable with, but you made that decision to go there. So now all the rules at the yeshiva, you're going to keep. You're going to try to keep, or make a different keeping. So that's the word of Kabbalah. So it's a decision that you make, that I'm accepting about myself, that this is the way it is. Where does it come from? Why should I do such a thing? Why would I go and make a decision that from now on, what the Eibishter wants, what Torah wants, should be the way I should live my life? It comes from an inner conviction that Eilet Mulvad. It comes from a part of the neshama which knows that the Eibishter is real, and that's the way to go, whether I understand it or I don't understand it. The side of Kabbalah Soil is that inner feeling that a person has. In Chassidus, it talks about Kabbalah Soil and Mata Mitam Vedas. The Mata Mitam Vedas would mean that a person never thought about it, never understood, never felt for it, whatever. This is the way he grew up. It's almost mitzvahs anashim ulumot. The basic Kabbalah Soil is almost, that's how I grew up, that's how what I do. I don't know too much. I grew up being a Frum Yidam, I keep Shabbos, I keep Shabbos also. Why? What happened Shabbos? Why is this a big deal? That's not real Kabbalah Soil. That's Lamata Mitam Vedas, and it could sometimes even be confused with mitzvahs anashim ulumot. But real Kabbalah Soil is a decision that I made that I'm going, and it comes from an inner place. That this is the Eibishter is real, the Eibishter is true, and therefore I'm going to live my life accordingly. The Baruch is asking, if someone cannot accept the idea of Nasa v'Nishma because he needs to have an answer if it's a big question, is it impossible to have real Kabbalah Soil? It's very hard. For someone that has to understand everything before he moves forward, he's going to have a harder problem with Kabbalah Soil because he's never going to be willing to do that. A bacher that has to understand every rule before he accepts it, so how can he go to yeshiva without knowing every single rule? Some bacher, before they go to yeshiva, they find out every last detail exactly what the yeshiva demands, because they're not willing to have random Kabbalah Soil suddenly. So a bacher like that, it's not impossible, but he's going to have a harder time. His Kabbalah Soil only automatic. It's not automatic, it's a decision. And if you're smart, it's impossible. It has nothing to do with smart, it has to do with tchunas hanefesh. Being smart is the capability of understanding different things. But not being smart is, you have less capability, but it doesn't make you a person that's willing to accept whatever you're told. So being smart is not connected. And if I don't have real Kabbalah Soil, I mean not really a chassid, it's hard to paskin who's a chassid, not a chassid, but in a certain sense, yeah. In a certain sense, if you don't have the real Kabbalah Soil, the real decision that Alikim is emes and the Eibishter is true, whether I understand it or not, then you're lacking in your basic of your Derek Chassidus. The second half of the question is not connected to the first half. We can try to leave it for next time. Huh? I forgot one more thing. And then we start now the 9 days. So now we're going to have the siyumim. In Mirza Hashem, every night the siyum will be